Welcome to the More Than Conquerors podcast. This is episode 1, and I'm calling it, You've Got a Covenant. So look, the first thing I heard the Lord say as we laid out this podcast series was, You've got a covenant. And it is a covenant by grace. You're saved by grace. You know that. You have a covenant, and it's a covenant by grace. And you think about it. Noah's covenant was also one of grace. Noah was saved by grace in that ark back in Genesis. When you don't believe me, turn and check out Genesis chapter 6, verse 8. It said, but Noah found grace. He found grace in the eyes of the Lord. The whole situation with where he had an ark and he had a covenant, he had this promise from God, honey, that was grace. He was saved by grace then. And you and I, we have a covenant of grace too. We are saved by grace, and we have a covenant that is based in grace. We found grace. We found grace and mercy in his eyes. That's what our covenant is based on. It is a covenant of grace. We're saved by grace. And with the story of Noah, Noah's whole family was saved through that ark. Generations were preserved as a result. Generations were saved because of that covenant that God made with him. And because of that promise, generations were saved. And that's the same as our covenant. Our covenant, under our covenant, we are saved by grace. It's not something that we earn. The Bible tells us we're saved by grace. The same grace that Noah found in God's eyes, that's the same grace and favor and mercy that you and I walk in. The same basis that he had for that covenant with him then, that's the same basis for offering him an opportunity to get an ark and save his family and save generations. That is the same grace that enables you and I to walk in a covenant and for generations of our family to be saved. Glory to God. And so the first step to winning is understanding your covenant and understanding that it is a covenant of grace. We're saved by grace. Glory to God. So Ephesians chapter 2 verses 8 through 9 tells us this. It says, for by grace you have been saved through faith, and it is not it is not from yourselves, because you know some folks will go off and say it was in. He said, no, it's not of yourselves. It's not from yourselves. It's the gift of God, not by works, so that no one can boast, right? It's by grace that we're saved. It's by grace. Noah found grace in God's eyes, and that's what enabled him to be able to get in that ark. You and I found grace in God's eyes, and that's how we're saved. That's the basis of our covenant, is grace and favor. Glory to God. If you enjoyed this first episode of the More Than Conquerors podcast, stay tuned for episode 2, where we get further into the things you need to know and how to walk as the more than conqueror that God's called you to be.